and welcome to Rolling with Reviews. I'm Will, and with me as always is the star of my galaxy,
Sarah.
And today we're doing a review of Beyond the Sun. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right. Beyond the Sun is a space civilization game in which players collectively decide the technological progress of humankind at the dawn of the spacefaring era, while competing against each other to be the leading faction in economic development, science, and galactic influence. The game is played over a variable number of rounds until a number of game-end achievements are collectively claimed by the players. The winner is the faction with the most victory points. All right, Will, so why did we get this?
So we've been looking for a game that deals with tech trees.
Yes.
And we've tried a number of them, and not every of them have worked out very well.
Right.
However, one that keeps coming up as a recommendation is Beyond the Sun.
Yep.
And when that came up, David Rodriguez from All Things New and Old said, "Hey, I see you have an old version of Vinhost. Do you want to trade for Beyond the Sun?"
Well, actually, it was the other way around.
Oh.
I saw that he had a bunch of games for trade, Beyond the Sun being one of them. So I said, here's our trade list. Are you interested in any of them? And he said, oh, you have Vinhost.
Yes. So we got rid of a Lacerda game, which was very, very, very heavy.
Yeah, it was a bit too heavy for me.
For something that we thought was still going to be heavy, but not nearly as heavy.
Yes.
And I think we got a good trade.
I think so too. But hopefully David's very happy with his trade too.
I say go over to his channel and demand Vinhost information.
All right. So what do we like about the game? Well, we got to start with the tech tree. That really works well in this game.
Yeah, they managed to, because all the techs are based off of theoretical imagined tech, it has this unique property where A doesn't necessarily always need to go to B.
Right.
Kind of like any sort of civilization game where you need to know writing before you can do literature.
Yeah.
That's not the case here. Instead, what they have are general categories, which they've color coordinated. And in those categories, they'll have little lines that go off. And where the lines kind of go off to is what will help build out your tree. You can probably explain this a little bit more.
Yeah, because for Will, he actually hasn't seen the board. I've tried to describe it to him.
Yeah.
So your first column, your level 1 techs, are the 4 same techs every game, and they're one of each type, which I know there's a science, commerce, military, and I always forget the last one.
Whatever the yellow one is.
Yes, whatever the yellow one is.
It's terraforming, which is the tech.
Anyways.
Yeah.
So they have lines that go to the right of it. So each column is the level of technology, but the lines connecting that go to the right or right and up or right and down are what connects. So some of the level 2 technologies might require 2 of the level 1 technologies. So it's not that the second level technology is predetermined, but you need to have other technologies that lead to it. And when you are developing a new technology, you look at the previous one or ones that led to it, and you draw cards from that deck until you get 2 of that color. So if it was blue, you're going to draw till you get 2 different ones that have blue. Now the lines could be both blue, or it could be like blue and red. And then what goes off of it may be different. Like if you choose that blue and red one, it may be red that goes off of it. So it changes trajectory, so to speak, to the next technology. But the wonderful thing is once that's down on the board, anybody else can learn it. They won't be able to change it to anything else, but anybody else could learn it. And I think in some of the previous tech tree games we've played, they've done it a little bit more restrictive.
Yeah, like, I know ironworking, and now you can't.
Yeah, and then that stops you from learning anything that would be after ironworking.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's like, so iron doesn't exist where I live? I guess not.
Yeah.
And it can never exist where you live.
Right. So I really appreciate the way that the technology is here of you could be the first to discover and explore and you get the choice. But it's hard to say that there's any bad choices. There might be ones that are better for your strategy, but even if someone else discovers a technology, you could still choose to discover it yourself, and it might help you too. So, like I said, so that's really good.
Yes.
Now, Will, you really like the narrative, thematics, and the mechanisms. Care to explain?
Yes. So when it comes to games, people will say thematics, and they'll completely disagree with other people as to whether or not a game is thematic. For me, thematics can be explored in one of two ways. Either you explore it aesthetically, that's where you have miniatures and fantastic art,
Yeah.
and the components feel like they're part of that world and it draws you in that way. Or they can be narrative through the mechanics. Now, really good games will have both.
Yes.
That's flat out. This game does really great with the narrative mechanics, where the action you do is a very good representation of what the theme is representing. For example, you turn a person into a ship. Well, what's happening is you've created a crew for that ship, you've built it with ore, and now they've gone out into space. Then, when you settle a planet, you use up the ships to basically say all the colonists are getting off the ship. They're basically repurposing the ships. And in doing so, those ships come back to your board as supplies. Now that makes sense because colonies will then create trade routes with your home faction, therefore making everything more plentiful.
Yep.
So it's those little touches throughout every action of the game that's very well explained and means a whole lot. And that's what I really like and
Right.
feel Beyond the Sun excels at. It's pretty terrible when it comes to the aesthetic portion.
Well, yes, it's not pretty, but it's functional. And I still believe
Yes.
that actually reinforces the thematics. The fact that you have this boring tech tree board, I think, still reinforces the thematics through mechanics. I just think most people aren't going to like it.
Right. But I'm absolutely gaga over the
Yeah.
narrative elements of the thematics in the mechanics.
Right. And the next point, which goes along with that, is the resource cubes are, I don't know, it feels brilliant in the way that it's utilized.
I don't think I've really seen it done this way.
We've seen people use dice where you do change the sides to certain things depending on what you want, but it's never felt this thematic.
Yeah.
Because your resource cube has 6 sides. There's the supply cube side, or supply. Yeah, it's like a rectangular thing. There's a person, and
Level 1 through 4 of the ship.
in level 1 through 4 of the ships, and the whole interconnectivity that Will was just talking about makes sense to then have one component be all 6 because they transform into each other. You could have a supply that turns into a ship. You can have a supply that turns into a person. A person could turn back into a supply. I don't really want to think about that quite so much.
No, it's
Maybe
more
we're
that
getting a little Dune here.
it's more that they've gone to work and now they're no longer available as free workers.
That's true.
But their work has created supplies for you.
But you could turn it into a ship. But then you could, when you colonize a planet, those ships turn into supplies. So having one component, because they could have easily just done a separate component for each one of these things, and this box would be heavier than it already is. I'm glad they didn't. It's just, like I said, it feels really brilliant. Other games have used cubes or dice in similar ways. It's just never been quite so thematically.
Yeah, it feels like it's spelled out.
Yes. So I think we talked that we actually like that the plain graphic design of the tech tree really reinforces. Now the space area does get more aesthetic, but then the problem is they didn't do great graphic design for usability on that side. So you're still going to have some issues. We talked about that in our Rolling with 2, that you were going to have to probably pick up the cards a lot to read them, because the information you need does not pop off the cards because the cards are so busy. Look great. There's lots of space and shiny stars
And neon colors.
and things like that.
But there's a lot of information you do need.
Yes.
Like when you take over a planet for the first time, you can get an ability. When you
Right.
colonize it, you can get an ability. What it's available to you, whether it
Yeah.
can produce food or is
Yep.
you needed to see. It gives you victory points when you colonize. You need to see that too. So there is a lot of information on the cards.
Yep. And Will, you really like the race to the finish mechanics because
So the race to the finish mechanics are very hit or miss because a lot of times what will happen is a race to the finish games is set up is player A gets ahead, they do something, they get this special ability, and that only makes them further ahead. And so then you have this kind of runaway leader, and it's just everyone else trying to catch up. This game is very limited as to the sort of first come, first serve mentality. So, for example, player A, or Sarah, discovers a technology. She gets a bonus from the technology just for discovering it. If I come along later, discover the same technology, I still get a bonus for discovering it. It's the same bonus. Now, the one thing that she will get that I won't is in that spot for the technology is an event card. She will flip it up, and if there's any choices to be made on that card, she will be the one to make it. Sometimes it's a game-changing mechanic for everybody. A few times it is a benefit just for that player.
Right.
But most of the time, it's sort of a global change type.
Right. And also, the person who discovers the technology gets a choice of technology, which the other people will not get. But when it comes to it, it's a relatively minor effect that doesn't put that person ahead. So you don't have that runaway leader. It's still a race to the finish. And if you turtle, you're still not going to be the one that wins. But it doesn't feel quite as bad as other games that are race to the finish that don't have that kind of, I don't know what to call it, equalizing where the majority of the benefit can still be gained later.
Yeah. So essentially, the benefit you get is more agency in how you approach your strategy.
Yep.
Fantastic idea.
Agreed. All right, I think that covers what we like about the game.
Yes.
So what we don't like about the game, and this is mostly going to be this one particular piece, I'm not a fan of area control. Now, the exploration board is definitely far from the worst area control, in my opinion, because I don't like area control. It's very minimal. You're still going to have competition. I think that's why I like the two-player count, and that's why if you watch our Rolling with Two video, we'll talk about how the two-player experience is. I prefer it two players because then there's less competition on this area control board that I already don't really like. So I want to say that if you don't like area control, you may or may not like this. It's really not that bad because if you only got two people especially, generally speaking, you're not going to compete much. It's not worth your resources.
I think this is one of those areas that I'm going to have to convince Sarah to try
a little harder.
A little harder at it.
Yeah.
Because the way the area control works is if you go to a planet, you're the only ship there, nobody has control of it, you get it. It's yours. Now, if someone comes along with more ship power than you, then they get it. Okay, that's an area control aspect. Then there's the whole concept of colonizing. Each planet needs a certain ship strength to even qualify to be colonized. Then you have to take an action that lets you colonize, and then the planet's yours. Anyone else who's on it gets shoved out in deep space. They're not destroyed.
Yeah, that's true.
They're still out in space. A new planet comes up, and all that strong ship presence that was there that controlled that planet and took it as a colony, they're off the board.
Yep.
So they kind of eliminate themselves, and it becomes very easy for you to, well, I'm now just going to grab this new planet.
And so this goes back to that there is no real runaway leader here with the race to the finish mechanics.
Yeah.
Because you're right, someone colonizes, their ships are gone, and so the new planet, you and the other people who have gotten shoved off into deep space now have access to that, and it's going to take that the person who colonized longer to get ships back out into space.
Yeah, I think the one aspect of the whole reason why I don't really view this as a true area control is a lot of area controls have a very punishing mechanic to them. This game treats your resources as valuable commodities. You never lose them.
True, they come back as supply.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the only thing we really don't like about the exploration board is just the poor graphic design, like we've discussed. The other thing that we both don't like is the advanced player boards. The powers and benefits are just so situational. And I really feel like sometimes what you achieve is contrary to how you need to go about achieving it. So you feels like you waste all these resources to get a benefit that doesn't even help you with your strategy that you invested in to get there.
Yeah, and some of these achievements that you have to do to even unlock your benefits take a long time.
Yeah.
I finally got both of mine at the same time the last turn of the game.
Right. And I unlocked my benefit really early.
But situational.
But situational, I never used it. There were only a couple of opportunities when I could even afford to pay. So even though I unlocked this ability, I still had to pay for the activation of this ability when it occurred. And usually when it occurred, I didn't have that extra ore to pay to use it. And even when I did, it's not what I wanted to do.
I think it was because it was it had a lot to do with the exploration
Yeah, it
board.
was putting a ship out.
Yeah.
Well, I needed my people to do the technology because that was what my focus was. And so anyways, for both of us, we much more just stick to the basic boards that just have asymmetric starting resources. They feel good that there's a slight differentiation. So you have a slight nudge in a different direction. So you're not automatically doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think they're so much better.
Now, will say the advanced boards did feel interesting because they had a different arrangement of where your supply cubes were, which actually does play an effect in how the game's played, and also symbols in your food and ore production.
Agreed.
They were clumped differently instead of just evenly spaced. So
Yeah.
that made a little bit more asymmetric throughout the game, but those achievements that it seemed like they were geared towards didn't really show up.
No, and the other thing is those advanced boards didn't include that basic asymmetric starting resources either. Everyone started with the same resources now. So I think, again, I probably will never want to play them again. But if we did, I would say you start with the asymmetric starting resources of the same faction from the base board if we're going to play those advanced. But there is an expansion coming out soon-ish from the recording of this video. I don't know exactly. I forgot to look that up. But hopefully that I do vaguely remember reading that they are going to have asymmetric powers that sound like they're going to be independent of the boards.
Okay.
So I'm really looking forward to that. The other thing we're really looking forward to with the expansion is this current game, as much as we really do enjoy it, it lacks depth. And we're really hoping that the expansion will provide us with that.
Yeah, I can imagine a few more plays will start having seen pretty much everything.
Yeah.
You do see the same thing from game to game because there are going to be certain things that are just automatically built into the game.
Yes.
Like certain events will always be in the mix. You just don't know where they are. So that feels a little samey. And there is enough depth so no one game is the same.
Correct.
But you will definitely feel like you get the deja vu feeling.
Yep.
Playing it enough times.
Yep. So, who this is for, definitely for intermediate and hardcore gamers, would not put this in front of a beginner
No.
or casual, even someone who's played a lot of games but sticks to casual games, they would not enjoy this. Now, the other thing is, though, you also need to be someone who doesn't care as much about the aesthetics.
Yeah, that's a very important point.
Yeah, so if you're used to playing dry Euros that are beige, welcome to space. It's mostly black and white.
Yeah. Very stark.
Very stark.
But it's easy to see, and
It is.
makes it easy to play.
And that's what's needed.
Yes. It's only when it gets colorful that it's hard to see.
Yeah.
and hard to play. The exploration board.
Yeah, the exploration board.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to our rating.
So for our ratings, we each have 1d6 worth of ratings to give. 1 is low, 6 is high. We give a number, a reason why, add them together and see what it rolled for us. Sarah, what did Beyond the Sun roll for you?
It rolled a 3. I think it's very solid. I really enjoy the tech tree. There's a lot I like about this game. Right now, though, there's also a lot that I really still don't care for. I am a turtle. I really like to explore everything. That doesn't work so well in a game that is a race to the finish. Now, as Will pointed out, I need to work on the whole exploration area control board. My problem is just balancing between the two things because I just want to do the tech. And so it's hard for me to figure out when do I do space exploration actions and interweave it in to make both things work. I'm just not that good with it. And the other thing is it's a heavy game for me. Not that it's always going to be heavy, but it's not going to be a game that I can really play most evenings. It's going to probably be a Saturday afternoon game, so it's just not going to hit the tables often.
Okay, for me, it rolled a 5. I finally found the tech game that I like. I am also not afraid to explore the exploration board, and because I think I've explored a little bit more of the game, I have a better feeling of where I can explore differently in the game from game to game. So I really have no downsides aside from the fact that maybe it doesn't look like the prettiest game out there.
Not that you look at it.
Not that I look at it, but I know that's going to be a big factor when I'm trying to convince someone else I want to play the game.
That's true.
So you're like, oh yeah, that game. Yeah, and I think it's the reason why I drop at a point is because Sarah does have a hit or miss experience with this. So
I really want to like it.
Yeah, it will be a challenge. It's just I have to convince her that the exploration of planets isn't a bad thing. In fact, that's kind of one of the points because we need to move beyond the sun.
Oh, I can't just explore technology safe from Earth?
No.
Okay, I got
You
it.
can't just do a cubicle job.
Well, we'll see how the expansion changes things because it's supposed to enhance the exploration and actually make it a viable endgame strategy, which will probably then push me to have to go into that area more.
Like, no, I don't want to go into space. You go to space. You eat paste.
Oh,
Like that.
okay.
All right, 8 out of 12, though.
That's
not bad.
It's still a good game, and it's still one we're keeping because we're looking forward to the expansion.
Yes. All right, Sarah.
Yes.
Did you find anything in this game surprising since it's the future?
The future. Not that I can think of. No. I mean, what did you find surprising?
What I found surprising was the fact they actually blended reality and science fiction very seamlessly. So the tech trees has all the androids and new
true.
technology of the future, new issues to come up, new things to overcome. So very sci-fi, very not based in reality. Whereas the planets you explore, those are all based on real systems in our galaxy.
Well, I would imagine some of the sci-fi elements are theories at the moment.
Right.
That we just can't prove or manufacture, whatever it is to do.
Yes. But it made a really nice transition from turning sci-fi reality and kind of blurring that line. Yeah. So that's what I found very surprising about this game. Because I would have figured some people will do, fantastical technology and do equally fantastic planets
Gotcha.
to colonize. But no, they
it's
actually
rooted in reality.
Yeah, it rooted in reality. So, like you said, they even root the concepts and dreams and ideas of technology in some form of reality.
Yep. That is good. That's what makes it that much better thematically.
Yes. And that would be it for us. And we've been Rolling with Reviews. And remember, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with Two. That's TWO. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And on YouTube, please like and subscribe.
And if you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you, because remember, he's rolling with you.